At the shareholder meeting yesterday, one of the questions was about when the updated Cybertruck pricing and specs would be revealed, and of course, because it's a shareholder meeting, he couldn't just start spilling out all of the concrete details. Here's hoping we actually get some kind of Cybertruck updated event in the future, but his answer, while vague, I still think says a lot about what we should expect. So he said, a lot has changed since 2019, and there were a lot of things with inflation and supply chain issues that we weren't able to predict or expect, and I think that was essentially confirmation that yes, the Cybertruck will be much higher priced than what they originally set out to do. And if you look into the fine print on your Cybertruck pre-order agreement, you'll realize that you don't really lock in anything when you put down that $100. Yeah, like back when they listed a price for the Cybertruck on the website, that was essentially a ballpark guesstimate on Tesla's part, and because it's taken them so long to get the Cybertruck into production and there were a lot of things they weren't able to predict, I'm thinking it's likely going to be much more expensive than people originally thought, and frankly, because we know Elon has talked about them doing a quad motor variant and rear wheel steering, and the updated prototype has a driver display and everything, I think we should expect the pricing and the production ramp of the Cybertruck to be much more like the Model S and X, not so much about the Model 3 and Y. And the reason the production capacity matters is because Tesla will very often base their pricing off of market demand. So if they were to price the Cybertruck at a very low amount or try to price match it to the F-150 Lightning or something, there would be so much demand for this truck that basically you would have a multi-year backlog and basically scalpers would go crazy, just like the PlayStation 5 situation, which isn't a great scenario because it basically just means a bunch of people end up paying top dollar for the truck, but Tesla doesn't get the profits from it, so that money doesn't support accelerating the transition to sustainable energy. So keep in mind, when Tesla refreshed the Model S and X, they mentioned that these cost less to build than the old generation Model S and X, but they still rose the prices because demand was so high, and now the Model S and X are both six-figure vehicles, and because Elon doubled down at this event and said that, hey, the Cybertruck is probably going to be our best product ever, it's going to be one heck of a product, I do believe him on that. I think it will be the best Tesla in terms of practicality and utility and functionality. There's going to be a lot of people that want this dang thing, and I can tell just based on internet traffic and how many clicks the Cybertruck updates get that there will be plenty of demand. So essentially, you're not trying to pay what it costs Tesla to build the Cybertruck. You're going to be in an unofficial auction if you're hoping to get your Cybertruck in the first wave, because this auction essentially is, if you're not willing to pay $100,000 for this truck because you think that's too expensive, well, too bad, because someone else in line with you is probably willing to pay it. So Tesla can get away with charging that much as long as demand is this high. So what I'm focusing on in today's video is that we finally have, you know, confirmation from Elon saying, yes, the price is not going to be as low as we thought, and the specs are pretty dated. You know, when we unveiled the Cybertruck, there was so much we didn't plan or expect for, so given how little information is currently on the website, that's why on this channel, I'm doing my best to tell people to assume the worst. I know you're probably sick of hearing me talking about it if you've been watching my videos for a while, but I look at the analytics and I can still see that a lot of you guys watching my videos haven't watched before, and what I'm trying to do is temper expectations and make our predictions a bit more realistic so that we're not overwhelmed with depression and super disappointed when the Cybertruck specs truly come forward, because I think this will be a tremendous disappointment considering how many people on Twitter I see are still convinced that Tesla has to honor the Cybertruck reservation pricing. They think that because they wired Tesla a refundable $100 3 years ago, that means that they have to deliver a $50,000 Cybertruck or a $40,000 Cybertruck to you. Simultaneously, Model 3s are costing $50,000, $60,000. But yeah, well, they gave us $100 several years ago, so I guess we have to honor those old prices. No, they truly don't. In fact, if they do the quad motor, and that's pretty much all they plan on building for a long time, they cover themselves legally so that, okay, well, if you want the quad motor, you have to modify your order. Therefore, we don't have to honor your old legacy full self-driving pricing. I know that's upsetting, and that will frustrate a lot of people, but when a company has this much power because they have infinite demand, essentially, and so many people are willing to line up and buy this truck, they can get away with doing stuff like that. And because demand for the Cybertruck is off the charts and there's millions of reservations for this thing, that means that even if 80 or 90% of people cancel, Tesla will still have a multi-year backlog, because this is the type of truck that it's going to take a long time to ramp. And in a recent podcast Elon was just on, he mentioned that the Cybertruck is a radically different architecture, and that makes it incredibly challenging challenging to build. So while yes, the 4680s are their own problem and those are taking a while to ramp, just the exoskeleton and the rear wheel steering and the armored glass and everything, that's its own set of problems that Tesla hasn't fully ramped yet. So I'm not predicting that they're not going to be able to make the Cybertruck. I'm just saying that the ramp of it may be a lot slower than what it's been for the Model 3 and Y, which were a lot more simplified vehicles that were not as complex. And yeah, the Cybertruck doesn't have a paint shop, but I think there's a lot more complexity to auto-presenting doors, rear-wheel steering, quad-motor powertrains, armored glass, and adaptive air suspension, built-in air compressor, all those additional outlets and additional storage space in the vault cover. Trying to mass-produce those at scale is going to be challenging, and Tesla's never done this before, so that's why I think production volume will be low, which means that they don't need to convince a bunch of you to go through with your order. They don't need everyone who plans on doing cross-country long-distance towing to be happy with the Cybertruck. As long as there's enough people willing to pay 6 figures for a Cybertruck, even if it's only a 300-mile range, if there's enough people to pay for it, then they can get away with charging whatever they want, because there's no point in having a 3-year wait time for the Cybertruck. That's not good for logistics, and it's really just not good for the company. So Elon did mention at the shareholder meeting that within the next couple months, they are planning on installing more manufacturing equipment at the factory, so we assume that's the robotics orders from Germany that are going to be specialized for building the powertrain, as well as the Hydra Gigapress, the 9,000-ton one that Elon said is going to be used for the Cybertruck underbody. Interesting note though, he didn't say rear underbody, he just said underbody, so maybe the bottom of the Cybertruck casting is going to be quite a bit larger than the Model Y casting, but I think people should focus more on Elon's comments at the shareholder meeting and realize that for the first time ever, he's actually starting to get realistic about the pricing and say, yeah, those prices in 2019, they were not accurate, and the truck will be good, but absolutely it's gonna be pricey. And if Tesla can say it's their best product ever, which I think they can, then I think we should expect it to be priced like their best product ever. So there is a downside for it being such an incredible and amazing vehicle, and I've been disappointed by Tesla's specs before, you know, like back when they unveiled the 4680 battery at Battery Day and they said that this would improve range by like 50%. I took that as, okay, once Giga Texas starts building 4680 Model Ys, that means we're gonna get like a 400-mile range Model Y, and that was the vehicle we were saving up for. And then of course reality sunk in and we realized that, well, because Tesla wanted to prioritize production efficiency and they don't have a need to increase range because demand is already crazy high, they were focusing on how do we build more vehicles, so they built a lower energy dense pack for the Giga Texas Model Y that allowed them to scale up production faster. So I was disappointed, but I could understand why they built that vehicle the way they did. It makes sense from a logistics standpoint, and it more addresses the real problem preventing EV adoption, which is not demand. It all has to do with production capacity. So I think we may have a very similar disappointment wave with the Cybertruck because, you know, lots of people don't watch my videos and aren't expecting this, and I think there's a lot of people that are expecting a $50,000 to $60,000 Cybertruck to come out because they reserved one and they're just patiently waiting, but they're gonna be extremely, extremely disappointed when the price ends up being way higher than they thought, and I personally predict the range will be a lot lower than they expected, and I just don't want that many people to be disappointed and upset by the reality of the situation. So I'm just trying to warn you, but I'd love to be proven wrong. You know, I always get comments about, no, Drew, Elon says he doesn't care if the Cybertruck is a flop, he just wants it to be great. So maybe they will do a 400-mile or 500-mile range Cybertruck. I don't think they will, but there's always a chance that they could, and if I try to temper your expectations for several years, and I got you expecting the truck to be super expensive and not very high range, then you'll be pleasantly surprised by the actual specs when they come out. You'll be like, oh, thank God, Drew was wrong all along, and I'll take that bad street cred, I'll take that bad reputation if it means that you guys get to be more positive when the real specs come forward, or if my prediction is right, then you can say, well, yeah, that's kind of what Drew said to expect, so I kind of knew that the specs weren't going to be that great. So I feel like either of those reactions would be better than expecting the Cybertruck to have really high range and be really affordable, only for it to be kind of the polar opposite of that. So hopefully you guys can understand where I'm coming from, and I'll just mention that I do appreciate Elon for finally being a bit more realistic on the Cybertruck. However, I think they could do a lot more to taper expectations. I think they should start providing a more ballpark range estimate, say it's going to be between $100,000 or $120,000, if that is the price range estimate, and mention now, if you aren't planning on doing a 500-mile range Cybertruck, you should probably say something. Plus, the website is filled with dated prototype images that don't have the updated design, which we know won't have door handles, and it will have side view mirrors, it will have a windshield wiper. They should take as many pictures with an updated production model Cybertruck and flood the internet with those so that people are knowing what they're getting when they actually are planning to buy one of these things. So please, Tesla, just try to be a bit more transparent here. When demand is as high as it is, there's really no point in being cryptic or hiding information here. There's still going to be a huge line of people to buy the Cybertruck, regardless of really what exterior features it gets or what the price is or what the range is. There will be people to buy it. So this wasn't quite as much information as I was hoping for, but it's a step in the right direction. But what do you guys think? Feel free to let me know your predictions on Cybertruck pricing and range down in the comments below. And thank you to everyone on Patreon supporting this channel directly. It seriously helps us out a ton, as does just watching these videos. So thanks again. Take care. Have a great day.